Hello there. Intersex, trans, gender diverse, intergenerational trauma. This is something I talk about in workshops with people, and it's very real. Now you may think, how can that possibly be such a real thing? But it really is very real, because intersex, trans and sex and gender diverse people are othered. We are othered in the general population. We're seen often as defective or psychopathic or deluded, that what we tell you our experiences isn't real. We have some kind of mental illness, or we're not very clever, or it's a phase, we're going through something. So in different countries, this is different. The more oppressed country, the greater the trauma, because part of the human being experience is to express yourself, is to become your full self, your full self. This is part of the human journey. And when we look back at oppression goes back generations. I'm well over 60 now. And I remember, 60 years ago, there was no such things as talked about intersex trans children. It was a subject that was never mentioned. So those children were completely oppressed. They were told not to talk about their experiences. They had things foisted upon them which they didn't want, or they were denied care that they wanted. So intergenerational trauma is real. Also the generations before that. I remember back in the late 60s, people being arrested for stepping into the street if they looked less than heteronormative, and clubs where they gathered being raided and people taking off in the back of a police van. And in many parts of the world, it's very dangerous to come out as intersex and trans. You can be harassed, you can suffer violence and beaten up. And this goes through the generations. It goes through our history, it goes through our trauma. The othering that we're not part of the human race, we're a defect, we're a blight on humanity. Now, this must be thought of carefully politically, but it must also be thought of clinically as well, in that anybody who identifies as intersex and trans has done some research or heard some stories about people who have had oppression, and it causes fear and anxiety about what we're going to experience. And we have our own stories that we carry forward with us of oppression, discrimination, bad treatment that we've experienced. And that goes on to future generations. Younger generations are doing wonderful things now. It really warms my heart when I see young campaigners are coming out on the internet and saying, I'm intersex and I'm trans. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. But we still, as a community, carry forward that intergenerational trauma. And that must never be forgotten. It was never be ignored. And in clinical practice, it must be considered as well. But we must build on that. We must say, okay, this happened then, this is happening now, and this is happening in this place. So it needs to make us stronger, and it needs to make us campaign harder, and it needs to make us stronger as basically 10% of the human population. So there you have it. The byword, intergenerational trauma. It's real. Be aware of it. Read around it. And become better and stronger than our history. Take care.